Hey everybody, and welcome to your intro video for Lab 8 in Physics 1105. Okay, so this lab is a little different in which this is a lab where you can design your own experiment, and it's all about the coefficients of kinetic and static friction. So I hope you remember maybe from lecture that when two surfaces are rubbing against each other, there's some friction, as you probably all intuitively know. And there's two kinds of coefficients of friction. And one is the coefficient of kinetic friction, which is what happens if you're, say, dragging something across the floor and you're moving at a constant velocity, right? So you don't actually have to move at a constant velocity for there to be friction, but in the experiment that you're going to do, I urge you to keep your movement at constant velocity. Is the only way it really works. So there's some friction, like the friction between my two hands rubbing together. Okay, that is kinetic friction. And the coefficient of kinetic friction tells you how much the two surfaces, how much friction there is between the two surfaces. As you might imagine, depending on the surfaces, there can be very little friction or a whole lot of friction. Okay, for static friction, it's more like if I'm pushing really hard on my two hands and then I'm pulling on this one and I'm trying to get it to move, there's this static friction force that is different than the kinetic friction. And to find that, I need to pull until it just starts to move. Right before it starts to move is when I'm going to get that, the static frictional coefficient. So you'll see in the help file that we have here shown on the screen how all this works and some hints on how to build your experiment. But really, this experiment is supposed to be you building it. All right. So keep in mind that when you build your own experiment, you want to build something that you can do multiple times to get a 90% confidence interval on your coefficient of friction. Okay. I think that's really all you need. You do need the lab kit because you're going to need the spring scale. That's how you're going to measure the force. You're also going to have to measure the weight of whatever you're pulling. So let's say you're pulling a book across a table. You need to measure the weight of the book, but you can do that by tying a string around the book and using your spring scale. Of course, your spring scale can't measure very, very heavy things. So you got to pick the stuff that's not too heavy, right? Because it only has a limited range of what it can weigh. Anyway, I hope the help file is really enough for you to design your own experiment. This is also has an informal report quiz. It's not a formal report. So good luck on the lab. And please, of course, text or email with any questions.